Well, welcome to Sit Talks, Chris. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very good, thank you. And thank you, Siddhartha, for the invitation.
So, yeah, Chris, how shall I introduce you as an engineer, as a professor, as a coach, as a mentor for the multinational company CEOs, or maybe a writer or explorer, or maybe the a man who is on a quest for self-discovery and enlightened path for others to live the to show the life beyond mediocrity.
I think in society, we're always given labels coach, someone who teaches engineers, engineer myself. I think labels always limit a person. So, but I know in this world, you need to have a label to sort of get a grip on who you're dealing with and the person you're talking to. I would say for now, the coach will do.
Coach will do. So
Yes.
we will take the coach. Well, how the journey begins from you. Let's me take me through to the like years ago in Belgium when you were there, a young kid, you know, coming from the Western world where the what you do is something is not very relevant. What the people's perception about that to Europe, if I may say in that way, how your journey begins. Like when you were a kid, how you grown up, and at what point in your life you have decided that that I have to find my path, which is out of Europe,
Hmm.
out of what people are doing around me.
Hmm.
How does it happen?
It happened quite early because I come from a farm. I'm a farmer's son. Um, and I always had a very good relationship with my godfather.
Okay.
And when I was 11, my godfather died. He was 56 at that time. And for me, I was really heartbroken. I cried like for 6 months every night because I so missed my godfather. And at that time, I was 11 at that time. I was looking for answers. Where did he go to? What is the meaning of life? Because just someone who was very dear to me was ripped out of my life. And I started looking for answers, looking in psychology, looking in parapsychology, looking in philosophy, looking for answers in religion. And that was sort of the start of my journey. And that's a journey, honestly, that has never stopped. And the deeper you go into that journey, the more you discover about yourself, the more you discover about life, how this world works, how psychology works, how people operate, how humanity works. So it's a very deep quest I was embarking on.
So at which age, like is it like 11 year when you were when spirituality strikes you, when you're asking having questions about where the soul goes, where
Yeah, I was 11 when spirituality really, I would say, would hit an even deeper level in myself.
but was it very normal to find at that point of time the answers? Because again, I believe in Europe there is not so much people are at that point of time might not be aware of the concept of spirituality or about soul going after depart.
That is correct. I felt very lonely at the time when I was talking to my peers. Can you imagine you talk to children who are also 11, you're also
Yeah,
11, and you ask these deeper questions? Everyone sort of thinks, my God, what are you talking about? Because it's not part of their world. They
yeah,
normally at that age, you don't ask the deeper questions. But for me, that was very normal. It was also very frustrating at the time for me because also my parents were not really asking these deeper questions.
yeah.
So nowhere in my immediate environment I could find people who sort of could give me answers. And if you can't find people who give you answers, well, then normally you start to look in books. I read a lot of books. I'm still reading a lot of books. And that's where you sort of start to get ideas about what other people think about life, what other people have found in terms of answers they are looking for. But it was a very lonely quest, to be honest. And I say, being on a lonely quest, it also builds you. I think, like
Okay.
everything in life, you can either have a situation that breaks you, or you can have a situation that builds you. In my case, it built me, and it gave me a foundation that would work for the rest of my life.
Great. I want to touch that point of spirituality later in our conversation ahead. I want to know initial your journey. Like when did you decide to go for the engineering?
Hmm.
Because I know you like technology, you
Hmm.
like mechanism.
Hmm.
So from there, how your let's say about your material journey begins. Like
Um, I always have loved mathematics. Mathematics
I'm well
is
aware of that.
so mathematics is something I really loved. And when you're 18 in Europe,
Yeah.
in this case, I was sort of put in front of a choice. Do I either go for psychology, which is a passion of mine, also to understand the deeper workings of the mind,
Okay.
or do I go for engineering? And because of my passion for mathematics, I chose to do engineering. But I have the two sides in me because I know that normally psychology and engineering, they normally don't match. It's like
Very contrast.
water and fire, they're almost polar opposites. But for me, it worked. It's part of my personality to
Yeah,
be
okay.
interested in both of them. And still up until today, even though I would say I'm more focusing now on psychology than I am on engineering, although I'm still in the world of engineering. Um, I'm not, I would say, I'm very happy with the choice I made.
Excellent. But when you decide to do engineering, then you move into the college. I think you are the head of department, like of teaching the students. So, and later on in your career, in your life, you become a coach and mentor. Do you think that part which you spend time with the students to teach them, to guide them, helps you to develop yourself as a mentor for the the big names and big company CEOs and stuff?
Yes, indeed. Very early on, then I was becoming head of department for engineering,
Yeah.
and I taught future masters in engineering, electricity specifically. So that's where my love for magnetism and all this related topics comes from. Um, and having those relationships with young people who are in the beginning of their life, who have all these questions, and also I would say the beautiful exchanges I had with those people. I think that was also the start of my journey to later on become a coach, and also later on someone who gives workshops, because the interaction between myself in
Yeah.
that case and the people around you, students who ask like deeper questions,
Yeah.
whether technology wise, because of course at that time being an engineer and teaching engineering, and of course you get a lot of technological questions,
Yeah.
but also a lot of these questions were very personal, had nothing to do with technology.
Yeah.
It was about their life, their relationships. And because of that personal bond that I was building with these students, that also was, I would say, leading me to the incentive of later on then stepping into the world of coaching and training.
What excites me when I was looking at your folio and what you have explained me over all these years, like, I mean, being a layman, like from somebody from outsider, you see that the big companies, the CEOs, and all of them are having a very lavish and luxury life. So why do they need a coach? Why they need someone to being a mentor? So
Mhm.
what kind of challenges they could have faced?
The world becomes more and more complex. That's for everyone the case. What used to be, I would say, an abnormality that people get a coach because being coached was seen in the past as, okay, you're weak, so you need a coach. You're
Okay.
weak, you need a psychologist. That is no longer the case because the world is becoming so complex. The challenges are becoming so diverse. That's why coaching becomes more and more important. And also, there's another topic, and I know it sounds like a cliche, it's lonely at the top. So when you talk to CEOs who run like big
Yeah.
companies, some of them stock market listed, a lot of them are quite alone. And if they have really deep questions, even whether those questions are related to their personal life, or whether those questions are related to their company, they can't always talk freely to their upper management.
Okay. Yeah, because they
Because,
are the
because,
upper
because some
management.
of these questions might be challenging. Perhaps they ask questions about, okay, do I need to reorganize my top management?
Yeah.
It's very difficult and very dangerous for them to ask these questions, or to, I would say, to ask feedback from colleagues of their top management, because then immediately the word starts to spread.
Hmm.
So they need someone they can completely trust, who they can completely confide in, and who is a sounding board for them, an objective, neutral sounding board, someone they can completely confide in, and someone they have the safety to speak their mind without the fact that it will blow up in their face or
To
it
keep
come
the
back to them.
confidentiality and the compassion they require at
Indeed,
times.
yeah. To to bring in the human part, but also the confidentiality part, because if you're a proper coach, then normally the confidentiality is as high as going to your doctor. Yeah.
That's great. Like, but what I want to know that because you work closely with the CEOs and the big names, and the people who made fortune out of their material life, if I may put it in that way.
Mhm.
What was the mindset you found different of them than the people who are working like in a job or working like 9 to 5 kind of work? So, what mindset is different from a person who is doing a 9 to 6 job and aiming to become someday a CEO? So, what's the big difference if you can put it in that way?
I think most of them have a dream. They have a
Okay.
dream to create something,
Yeah.
to become someone. They go for it. When they are dealing with challenges, they make sure they will overcome them one way or another. So they don't give up. Um, and they're quite focused in their vision. So, whereas a lot of people in the world, when they are met like with challenges,
Yeah.
um, they sort of feel relatively quickly crushed by those challenges. Those are the people that, yes, of course, they also get these challenges,
Yeah.
but they continue to stand up again. They learn from their mistake. They don't look at their mistakes as negative. They always see their mistakes as something they can learn from and how they can become better at it.
And from where they are getting that inner motivations, like, I mean, some of the cases you will see, the business houses running from generations is kind of inherited to them, it's in the genes. But when you see a self-made man who become to the top, like, in a day, I mean, you can relate to it. We all have a sudden time where we feel low or some incident happen or whatever, we try to give up. But what made them continuously pushing by themselves without any external support, or they do some kind of things which we're not aware of, like meditation or yogas, or keep their body fit or mind refreshed, like what could have been exercise for them to keep them doing, as you said, like never give up kind of.
They have a mindset never to give up, but to never give up. But the mindset they also have is they want to make a difference somewhere.
Okay.
Um, they're not happy with how an industry is run. They really think they can do it better. They can make a real change,
Okay.
and that's what they believe in. So they see a bigger picture and they stick to that bigger picture. And yes, they will have setbacks that the bigger picture will not yet be fulfilled yet in the next
Hmm.
3 years, but eventually this is where they're going to. So they have a clear
Interesting.
vision of where they want to end up with,
Wow.
and they want to make a difference. I think that's important. A lot of people also, the CEOs that I've met, they really want to contribute one way or another to society, to their environment.
Hmm.
So
Like a pleasure of giving.
the pleasure of giving, yes, but I would say it's focused giving.
Okay.
They don't just give. I
It's
would
like an
say
investment way of giving
no. I
to.
wouldn't say investment. I would say that they are very aware of their energy. They
Okay.
won't spill their energy. So they're very focused in who they give, what they will give, what circumstances they will support. They won't just
Interesting.
throw energy in an empty bucket. That's not what they do.
How you find overall working with them? Like, because as you, what I understand after what you describe, they are very focused, very much into their own world. It must be hard sometimes to connect with them because they might being stubborn. Sometimes hard work makes you stubborn. So do you have any challenges working with them where you feel like, what, it could have been done better way? Like the main challenge.
There's a big difference when you deal with different levels in organizations. Like if you deal with a person at lower management level
Yeah.
or at mid management level or at top management level, it's a different mindset. Specifically, if you're dealing with business owners,
Yeah.
you also are the CEO. I would say the higher you go in the organization, the more focused you need to be as a trainer or as a coach. Because first and for all, these people don't have that much time because there's so much on their plates.
Yeah, of course.
So you don't normally have these psychological sessions where you
Hmm.
ask a lot of questions. How do you feel? No,
Yeah.
no, you come in and you're really on point. Uh, I would say the ability to be able to switch and to very quickly give a feedback, be a sounding board, that's a quality that's extremely important at that level. So they need
No,
to have
excellent.
information fast, and they need to have information that is valid. Plus, also, you need to have the strength to disagree with them if needed.
Okay.
Because if they want you as a coach or as a trainer, they don't just want a yes person, because yes
Yeah.
person they already have
They
in their
already have a
company.
lot of them.
They want a person who challenges them with a sounding board and say, no, this is not how you should do it. This is how you need to look at it differently. So the capacity to not be intimidated by people who have a lot of power, by people who have a lot of influence, I think that's an important quality. And that is something you need to get used to, because that's a different drive, different energy in which you then operate when you deal with these people.
Well, that's sum up kind of the difference what as an ordinary person the CEO can have, like you sum up in very, very uh, perfect way, if I may put in that way, that you have explained that, what a normal layman can take from them in terms of vision and managing this stuff. Now let's come to the point where you have to move from Europe to, explore the world. I mean, it's your spirituality who, encourages you to travel around, or it's your business where you wanted to expand and you wanted to find your own self, like what better you can achieve, you move out of Europe,
Hmm.
or is someone in your family that you kind of, get inspirations to travel and, make a fortune. How does that happen?
Hmm. In my journey for spirituality, the deeper, I would say, deeper meaning of life, I've always been looking all over the world for training, workshop, insights.
Okay.
So from very early on, even when I was, and now in this modern age, that would seem like old, what I'm now going to say. But I was like, when I was 16, I was at that time I was living in Belgium. I was taking my first journey to the UK, and the reason I went to the UK is Belgium is Dutch speaking and French
Yeah.
speaking. The reason I went to the UK is I wanted to find books, specific books on spirituality, which were not published in Dutch. So I went to London specifically to get those books. Uh,
Interesting.
I went to Foyles, for those who are familiar with the UK. Foyles is one of the biggest bookshops in the whole of the UK. And there I found the books that I was looking for. So specifically to get those kind of books, I went to the UK. So that was my early journey. But then later on, when I was starting to make money, I was having my own salary. Then I spent a lot of my money on doing workshops all over the world. Workshops like in Canada, workshops in Ecuador, workshops
Okay.
in the United States, in Germany, in France. A lot of countries where there was, I would say, a new technique, a new insight, um, I would say, a new angle that could help me get even a more deeper understanding. And to be clear here, when I talk about understanding, understanding is only one part of the game. Because if you're long enough into, I would say, the field of personal development,
Yeah.
knowing something, I would say, is 10% of the solution. Becoming it, that is the difference. A lot of people know a lot. A lot of
Yes.
people know far more about personal development than I do, because they read far more books than I do. But becoming it, doing the journey to change your energy, to transform your energy, to become what you read, that is the real key.
You mean the implementation is like 10% of what you have read in general?
Most people
Completely.
fail to implement that because there is a deeper mechanism going on here. And the deeper mechanism is that people are addicted to sameness, people are addicted to their old habits. And because of that addiction, and that's what you see a lot in workshops, specifically on personal growth, I call it workshop junkie behavior. And what is a workshop junkie behavior? You go to a new workshop, you get some new insights, you're pumped up for 3-4 weeks, and then after 3 to 4 weeks, the energy starts to go down again because the adrenaline, the high is not there anymore. And then because you've become so addicted to this high, you go to the next workshop. Again, new insights, again, you're going
So
to
basically, to
change.
get the external motivation, you do the workshops.
Yeah, you get an external motivation
Yeah.
to do workshops just to get the high, but it doesn't transform you. You could just as well do one workshop in your whole life, if it's a good one, hopefully, and then you go for it and you really implement it. You really make sure your beingness, the way you are, the way you behave, the way you express yourself, the way you hold yourself, that changes. And that commitment to yourself, that is what most people don't do, because on the deepest level of your body, you're wired against change. That's why change
Hmm.
is so difficult in terms of behavior. It's very easy in the mind to get new ideas. It's very easy to read up on new philosophies,
Yeah.
but really to implement that, that's a different game. But this is where the gold lies, to
So,
implement it.
what can be challenges in between? Is it like the consistency people had give up on, or is it like they kind of get, as you said rightly, that stuck with their old habit pattern, which they are unable to break? What could be the solution for that?
One of the things which I believe is extremely key, if you want to change yourself, you need to have the ability to be with yourself alone.
Can you elaborate that?
Yes. Um, a lot of people fill up their environment with other people. It keeps you busy. You go and play tennis together. You go and see the movies together. You go to a bar together. And there's nothing wrong with doing things together. Don't understand me wrong. But if you really want to do the deep work, if you really want to change, you need to separate yourself temporarily from your environment, because that's where the transformation is really happening. But a lot of people are very scared of being with themselves, because it feels empty. That's also why a
Yeah.
lot of people go into relationships. Not necessarily, of course, there is physical attraction. There might be other things
Yeah.
that are going on, but a lot of people just go and find another partner because they're so afraid of being alone.
Like
And I
running
would,
away from themselves.
sorry,
Running away from themselves.
running away from themselves. And I think the most important quality, if you really want to become an autonomous being in this world, is to learn to be alone with yourself and be happy with yourself. Because if you really want to build a good relationship, first you have to be happy with yourself. And then if you meet a partner who's
Yeah.
also happy with themselves, of course, then it's great fun together. Don't ever, and this is something I really learned very early on in my life, I don't ever expect someone else to make me happy. I need to make myself happy first. And then if I interact with other people, then I will share my joy. So people will never feel I'm dependent on them. They will never feel I need them. Because the feeling of needing someone is the best way to suffocate a person.
Wow, that's a very strong statement. And you know what was the irony, that we are living in the world where social media is everywhere. I mean, not to criticize that, because right now we are also on social media.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, that making people more lonely, more, hollow. And as you said, it's very hard to cope up when you are lonely with yourself. We are more into socializing. Either we hang out, either we meet a friend, family, or if we are alone, we engage ourselves with, with of course, with mobiles all over. So I think the world has become more lonely than ever.
There is indeed a paradox right now. And the paradox is indeed social media technology is able to connect us very easily, because
Yeah.
it's never been as easy as it is now. But what strikes me really all the time is when I go to a restaurant, I see a lot of people, specifically younger people, who sit there together with four other friends, and they're all reading their mobile. So they sit together, they're having lunch together,
Yeah.
but most of the time they're really not connecting with each other.
Yeah.
And I think this is something we have lost. We have lost connection. And of course, also the ability to, when something doesn't really work out, you have a discussion with a person, you have an argument with a person, the best way to really solve it is to do it one on one, face to
Yeah.
face. I express my feelings. I'm not happy with how you see things. But what do we do right now with social media? I don't like you. I just cut you off and I block you.
Yeah.
So I never have to confront you. I never have to really solve it. And this is where we become lonelier and lonelier, because essentially we're just going to hang out with people who like us but not necessarily help us grow. And you need both in your life. You need people who
Absolutely.
help you grow, who force you to go to the next level if you want to evolve. And of course, also people you like, but you need both. And if you continuously cut yourself off from people who think differently, from people who don't see it the way you do, then you stagnate. You stagnate, you don't build any resilience, and you don't build any deeper rooting in this life.
No, that's correctly said. I mean, and I can completely relate to that. Like when I see around, when I even see myself doing the same stuff, And apparently, when you cut off the people, as you said, on social media, still that left the grudges in your heart because it's never resolved. And at the end, it becomes like a burden on your heart, which is, it takes time to get rid of it.
Hmm.
Well, I want to get back to the point and your journey from out of Europe. How old you were when you travel out of Europe, first time ever, or let's say come to UK, or I think you travel India as well. UAE. How was that? How old you were?
I would say the biggest change for me, because of Europe, of course, has different countries and
Yeah.
they all have their different specific culture, but still you sort of have the European flavor, which
Yeah.
is all over the European continent. For me, the biggest change when I first went out of Europe was going to India.
Okay.
Um,
Which year is what?
which year this was? Well, this the first time I went to India, I think, was in '94. So that's quite a long time ago.
Long. Yeah.
Luckily,
Well.
I've been there since then, much more than in '93.
Yeah. So I mean, coming from proper Europe, like Belgium, grown up all over there, and being in India in '90s, which was a very very contrast, right?
It was a
How you
huge.
take it initially when you landed to Delhi or Mumbai, I guess.
At that time, we landed in Delhi. Yeah, we
Okay.
landed in
So what was
Delhi.
the first impression?
The first impression was, my God, there's a lot of people here, and there's a lot of chaos here. Um, And also, what I saw, which you at that time you didn't see that much in Belgium, was like the difference is openly in. I would say when you walk in the streets, there are people who you see are quite wealthy, but there's also beggars on the street. There's
Yeah.
people who have limbs missing, that kind of stuff. So the contrast was huge, and literally, I still remember there were people traveling with us. Some of them, they literally, after day one, they wanted to take the flight back and go back to Europe because the
My God.
contrast was so
Yeah.
big. They could not handle the difference. But I really loved it. I really loved the contrast. I really loved the diversity. Um, Also, the spirituality that you feel in India. Now I know spirituality is being, you can either live spirituality on a shallow level, you can live it on a deep level. There's different
Hmm.
levels of experiencing that, but I love that so much. I love the vibe, I love the diversity. At that time, we explored most of northern India, including Nepal. We went to certain stupas, also
Yeah.
Buddhist flavor, Hinduist flavor, and Buddhist flavor. Uh, and because also I'm very interested in the Indian religion, like reading up on the Bhagavad Gita,
Oh wow.
I sort of felt like, okay, this is where it all comes from. This is where it was all born. So for me, it gave like a different layer of depth.
Well, it's interesting that you have read Bhagavad Gita. So, what was your key learning out of that, or what some phrase which stuck with you till then, until now?
Um, well, first, I like the setting of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita, where you have Krishna who is having conversations with
Yeah.
Arjuna, the biggest, the best archer ever.
Yeah.
That setting, I already like the dialogue. Um, I think the most important, um, I wouldn't say takeaway, but the most important message in there is that Krishna, at a certain moment, tells Arjuna, okay, Arjuna, because we are now in front of a war that
Yeah.
is coming, you can either choose. You can either choose my army, which is huge, and I can give you that,
Yeah.
or I can give you my counsel. What do you want? The fact that Arjuna chooses Krishna's counsel,
Yeah.
that as such, I found extremely fascinating.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And he was being under the oath that he will not fight, he will not take any weapon, he will just counsel or give advices.
yeah.
Oh, very, very interesting. So, how was, I mean, again, I'll take you to the Bhagavad Gita point again because it's very fascinating. Somebody from far west and, talking about Bhagavad Gita. How does it affect on your life and your decision making? Or not only Bhagavad Gita, let me come back to the spirituality point where you mentioned that you're being spiritual. So how does it affect on your decision making skill in terms of in the material life or when you when you are working with the startups and when you have your own companies, how does it help? Because what I understand nowadays, an excuse if I may say, people say that the one who is being spiritual doesn't have any material life. He's like, you know, leave everything behind and just be living like a loner and not achieving significantly in the life. But that's not true, and we have seen that. So how you balance, or how does spirituality helps you to build your material world?
Let me first say that I've always believed that in order to become a fulfilled human being, you always need to have both of them. You need to have and the spiritual component and also the material component. Spirituality without the material aspect of the world is sort of negating on 50% of your experience at least. The material world without spirituality feels very empty. So you need both. But in having or in living both, there's a huge tension between those two.
Yes.
And holding that tension, that is for a lot of people extremely challenging. So that's why a lot of people, they choose one way or another. Or what you also see with a lot of people is first they made a lot of money as an entrepreneur. That's also what I see when I talk to some of the CEOs that or entrepreneurs that I talk to. They make a lot of money or very successful as an entrepreneur. And then later in their life, let's say when they are 50 or 60, they sort of delve into this deeper spiritual part because they have found that having all this success or all this money isn't really the answer. It doesn't make them fulfilled. And I really like the quote of Jim Carrey a lot. And Jim Carrey, one of his quotes,
I mean, he's,
he's brilliant,
yeah, he's
Jim Carrey.
brilliant. That's the best word to put in him.
One of his quotes is, I think it's on Instagram. He says, well, everyone should become rich. Everyone should become rich and famous to know that
Yeah.
when you're there and when you have that kind of an environment, it's not really the
Yeah.
fulfilling part. Now, that doesn't mean you don't need money. Everyone needs money because we live in this material
Yeah.
world. But the balance between the two is important. Um, what you see far less is people who go the spiritual path and then later on turn to the material path, that you see far less. But essentially, that would make up the whole experience of a human being. For me, the spiritual part is, I would say, is my core. I have had a lot of mystical experiences myself. So I'm not just talking about books because books
Yeah.
is, I'm, I would say books is interesting to give you a concept, but if you have had the experience yourself, something which is out of the ordinary, then you start to feel, believe that there is something more to this world than just the material stuff that you see. And that deeper part, why are we here? Where do we come from? Where do we go to? Those were questions I was already asking when I was 11, when I had
Yeah.
this situation with my godfather. And that has always been there for me. And I really deeply believe that we have a soul, an energy, whatever you call it, that we have a purpose here. For some, it's quite difficult to discover that purpose. Certainly, if there's all this noise coming at you.
Yeah.
Um, and that there's something to do here which you will use in the next part of the journey. Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, that doesn't matter. Uh, whether this energy goes to another place, we don't know because we've not had any people who returned and came back.
To
Some
do a
say they've
podcast which
returned.
doesn't tell us how his experience.
Indeed. Um, but I believe we have a purpose here, and what we do has repercussions. It has effects. So I want to be here as a good human being. I want to be here as a correct human being.
Yeah.
I want to leave the world a better place with me being in there and the contribution I have done here. But I'm also very much aware of the mortality of life. And I think one of the important things, and this is for a lot of people, I think the most challenging one, is to really come to grips with your mortality and to come to a point where it's okay to die. I've come to a point in myself, now I still have a lot of life in me to be clear, and I have a lot of projects going on. But if I were to die soon, it's okay for me because I have such a trust in what's going on or what will happen outside of this experience that for me this is not a fear. I have no fear of death. And I also had in my previous experiences, I've had one of the spiritual experiences, I had a near death experience where I saw all these fragments of my life in future lives, past lives. I know this might sound crazy for some people.
No,
Uh,
it makes sense because if you're, I mean, that's what I read about, and as you we are talking about earlier, when you have this near-death experience, you have the past life coming in and flashbacks, and where are you moving, and it's a very different experience which you can't even put at word to describe. But I know what you mean completely. I understand.
Indeed, it's an experience that changes you,
Yeah,
because you can read about it. But reading about something is what I
yeah,
call philosophy. It's nice to know.
fascinating.
It's
Good
fascinating.
verbiage.
It's interesting to know. But if you experience it and it becomes as real as I'm talking to you right now, then it changes you.
Yeah,
And then you really open yourself up to a lot of other aspects. And the moment you start to open yourself up to a lot of other aspects, you get even more of that because that's how attention works. A lot of children, when they are young, they have these out of the ordinary experiences. But what do most parents do? They say, well, this is crap, this doesn't exist, don't pay attention to that.
yeah.
And you sort of train your child to be limited again. Because most children, when they are younger, they have a much broader experience. A lot of children are much more
They were
happier.
being curious. They
They're
want to find the
curious.
answer,
Yeah, sure.
and parents doesn't want to feel like they don't know, so they try to avoid the questions to protect their kind of reputation.
Correct.
And as they
Yeah.
said, like you are a soul who is experiencing in the body.
Yeah. And the older you get normally, for a lot of people, specifically if you work in companies, the more roles you play. Or if I say it differently, the more masks you wear.
Okay.
And getting rid of those masks, being authentic, this is who I am at the core of my being. This is a journey in and of itself, but that takes courage. It takes courage to stand alone and not wear a mask and not, I would say, give in to what people expect from you.
Wow. You have a very deep level of understanding about spirituality, and I can see that you are very much on to what you have started with, and I think it's really deeply impact your life.
Mhm.
If I have to ask, if your life without a spirituality, where you would have seen yourself?
Without
Yeah.
spirituality,
If you never encountered that experience, where you would have been now?
I would probably no longer be alive. That's yeah, because I had some traumatic experiences when I was a young kid. We can talk about it
Yeah.
another time. Um, but the challenge at that time was so big. If I would not have had that spiritual component, I'm not sure I would have found the strength. I would have found the drive to continue because I still am, as a young child, I was a very sensitive soul. And a lot of the time, when being like 10, 12, 16 years old, I really had the thought cross my mind, which was like, you're just too good for this world. The world is too hard. You cannot survive in this world. This is not a place I want to be in. And coping with this kind of energies, with this kind of information, to get through that, yeah, that takes spiritual grounding. Otherwise, you just don't get there.
But how you find yourself when you are in early age asking these questions, and I'm pretty sure that your friends, everyone might have think that what are you talking about?
Yeah, my father literally told me you're crazy. So all these questions I was asking, I didn't get any support from my parents. My friends didn't have a clue what I was talking about. Even when I was 16, 18, when I
Hmm.
was talking about these kind of topics, that was clearly not their experience. They were not into those things. They were into football, other kind of stuff, but not
Yeah.
in the things that I was into. Um, but luckily at that time, I find like you could call it a teacher at the time, someone who also the books I was into at the time about how you create your reality, and there was someone I found nearby was also into that kind of
Yeah.
topic who was at that time like double my age, and that sort of got me going. And it was, I would say, a first anchor to see for myself I'm still sane, because sometimes when you're on this journey, and it's a lonely journey in a lot of cases, you question yourself, am I still sane or not? Because if no one around you is into the topics that you're into,
Yeah.
it's always good to find someone who at least understands you.
Definitely. You talk a lot about your books, like you have read a lot, not only the spirituality books about the mechanism and trying to see different philosophy from the different people. What kind of books you think you have read throughout your life, and which have really have a deep impact on you to develop as a person, as an individual?
There are several books that really have a deep impact on me. Now, to be clear, before I go into the books, and I'll share you some of the titles, I have a practical engineering mindset. It was before I was engineering, to be clear. And what is my engineering mindset? That I'm very open to whatever works. So I will not stick to dogma. Um, I will not only stick to peer-reviewed papers. I will not only stick to what's everyone accepts or what mainstream society accepts. If it works, it works. Imagine if I'm sick
Yeah.
and someone tells me, Chris, just stand on your head and do 3 rolls, you'll get cured. I'm willing to try it. And if I stand on my head and doing 3 rolls and it cures me, then I say it works for me. That's the mindset. So I've always had this very open mindset. This is also what brought me, I would say, also to Dubai, because Dubai also has a very open
Yeah.
mindset. Um, one of the books, which is a book where a lot of, I would say, most of the personal mastery books essentially have their foundation in. Law of Attraction included, manifestation books, is the earlier work of Jane Roberts. And one of the tomes, I would say, a very deep book. Not everyone will be
Let me take
able
the
to read
name of
it.
on your house. Set speaks.
It's That Speaks, yes. It's a tome of like 500 pages.
Uh,
Goes very deep into the nature of this
yeah.
reality, how this works. This is a very fascinating book. When I read that the first time, I was 16 at the time.
Wow.
I got like all shivers all over my
Yeah. Of
body.
course, it's
It
a.
was like, an awakening, a remembrance. Wow, my God, I feel this is true. I cannot prove it. I just feel all of my cells in my body say it's true. So that is one book
That's one of the
that I
book
still
is very.
cherish.
Sorry to interrupt. That's one of the book I found very closer to the reality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. It's about how this reality works. Um, but it was a book, I would say, ahead of its time. If you
Yeah.
still read it, I think it's ahead of its time.
Absolutely.
Another book, which is, I would say, more philosophical, mystical, would be the work of Gurdjieff.
Okay.
Gurdjieff is, he was, because I think he died in 1954, um, In Search for the Miraculous. Is written by a student of his called Ospensky, where he talks about, there's two things there's a lot of things in the book, but two things that really come to mind when we talk about it right now is, first, he talks extensively about the difference between knowing and being. There's a huge difference
Yeah.
between knowing something and becoming it.
Yeah.
Essentially, you could also say Shakespeare did the same thing,
Yeah.
to be or not to be. That's the question. Knowing
Yeah.
Socrates, also the same thing. To be or not to be, was also talking about this kind of topic. That's one of the things. But another thing which I found really fascinating is that Gurdjieff says that Gurdjieff essentially was a Russian mystic, to be clear. Gurdjieff says that there's all these different small I's in your personality. We think we are one consolidated I,
Yeah.
the Chris. I am Chris, or you're Siddhartha. But Gurdjieff says, no, that's not true. You're a fragmented I. I'll give you an example. Let's say we have a deal, we conclude a contract. That's one. I give you a handshake. That one I, small I in me, says, okay, this is a good deal. Then 15 minutes later, I walk out of this building and I think to myself, my God, I think I made the wrong deal. It was not a good thing to do. So I start already to question. So there's another part of me that surfaces and that questions. Or another part that's very friendly to you, and then that other part is nasty to someone else. So Gurdjieff says essentially that most people have like hundreds of eyes in them, hundreds of fragmented parts in their being.
Being very fluctual of
Being
every
very
time
fluctual, can be
they
very
speak.
moody, not
Yeah,
really stable, depending on if the stress is too high, you sort of start to fragment.
yeah.
And what I really like about Gurdjieff's work is, he says, spirituality is about consolidating to one eye, one
Wow.
monolithic eye. That's what it's about. And then you're
You're fully focused in that
fully
moment.
focused and you are in full power. And again, this is also my engineering background, because I truly believe on the deepest level that relationships, yeah, to a certain degree, they are determined by psychology, for sure.
Yeah,
But psychology and trends in psychology, they can also be trends. With what is a model that is hip now cannot be hip anymore
yeah.
in 30 years' time. But the laws of physics, they are fundamental. And a lot of what's going on in physics, if you really think about clearly, that's also, by the way, one of the books I'm writing
Mm.
about it right now. Um, you can look at human relationships, and or even how the body is made, and you can translate the laws of physics. And then if you see what happens in the laws of physics, you can already predict what's going to happen in the psychology
It's
of
kind of
a person.
interconnected to everything.
You can connect it to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm saying is this: there is a specific, that's now my engineering background speaking, there is a specific state in physics which is called superconductive. In a superconductive state, everything in your material is completely aligned. There is zero resistance. And in this superconductive state, all the influence from magnetic fields that come outside, they are repelled. So your energy is 100% focused. So this consolidation to one eye, where you're extremely consolidated and strong and energetic, that also has a basis in physics.
So it's basically what I understood in the layman's language, that the energy which we see in the form of engineering, or let's say any other form, and what we see in spirituality, is all connected to each other, and they
Correct.
serve the same purpose,
Correct.
to be aligned.
Correct.
Like electricity going through our veins, and the electricity you'll see that going around.
Correct.
If put in the same process, it can create miracles.
Yes, and also it's a what's a bit, I would say, sad in science is that science has a lot of silo thinking. Okay?
Yeah.
When you are in biochemistry, you only think in biochemistry. When you're electricity, you only
It's
think in
like kind of
electricity.
keep you separate from other, and
Yeah,
kind of limit yourselves.
yeah, it limits yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas the biggest breakthroughs, and this is of course now also happening with, of course, the arrival of AI, because AI can very easily go into these different silos of
Yeah.
knowledge. It's the connection of these different silos of knowledge that allows you to see very different, or to look very different at the topic or the challenge you're dealing with, and to really get knowledge and get
Hmm.
insights from different aspects, which help you tremendously in tackling a problem.
Well, very, very deep understanding for that. You know what I want to initially you talk about earlier about the manifestation and law of attraction.
Hmm.
Why I'm bringing to that topic again, because what I see in today's youth, and what I see on Instagram mostly, they talk and they sell more about law of attraction. How does it work? What's your take on that? I mean, you being pretty much well aware of uh, the process. How does it work? You being aware of the energy cycle. So what's your take on law of attraction and how the manifestation process work? I mean, you might be aware of the book called The Secret,
Of
very, very well
course.
famous
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
So
I
how you
think
put in
the
that
good
way?
thing about The Secret is that it sort of opened up a lot of people to the potential that they can have an influence on what they experience. So that is very positive. It really, I think it was a breakthrough book, although the book in itself is not new. If you have enough
I mean, yeah,
background
she
in
has
personal
said that
development,
she has like a
yeah,
manuscript of like over 800 pages over the years she have
yeah,
collected.
indeed. It goes back to books even from
She's
the
combining one like
19th,
400.
19th
Yeah,
century
yeah,
even. So
absolutely.
but the way she packaged it, the way she I would say put it together, and the way she brought it out in the world, that's great. And so I can only give comments on compliments on that. However, there is there is a challenge with the way The Secret talks about manifestation because it oversimplifies things. And because it oversimplifies things, most people don't get the results that they really want. Because simply put, The Secret says, okay, think about something long enough and it will happen. And then people start thinking about something and then they see, well, it doesn't really happen, or it doesn't really happen the way I would like it to
Yeah.
be. That's the sort of the simplification of The Secret. A much more correct version of The Secret, or if you elaborate on what The Secret is saying, is that it's your energy that creates your reality.
If you can put an example to explain, like how does it, or maybe an experience you can share where you actually have manifested something through the process of law of attraction and it works for you.
I'll first give you the
Yeah.
full, I would say the full workings, and I'll go into an example. Um, our energy is made up partly by what we consciously think, what I know right now, what I'm aware of.
Yeah.
But most of our energy is made up by what unconsciously is going on in our body. You know, all the chemistry, my heart that's beating, the fact that I'm breathing, all these processes are taken care of on a subconscious level. I'm not actively steering my breathing. Otherwise, it would be very difficult, and also
Yeah.
to control the pumping of my heart and so on. So most of the things, you could say more than 95% of what's going on in your life is all subconscious. Yeah. So these are all routines you find yourself in without even knowing. You suddenly feel attracted to the fact that you want to eat a bag of crisps. You feel hungry, but on a deeper level, you're compensating because you just were confronted with an emotion that's
Yeah.
very difficult to deal with. But you now suddenly have this craving to go and have this bag of
Yeah.
crisps. So these are all subconscious processes. These subconscious processes, I call it ghosts in your energy. They are there. They're there all the time. Most of the time, you're not even aware of them. And they have a huge influence on what happens to you. And if you're long enough on this planet, or some people who are very quick in analyzing patterns, you will see that as you go through life, you always encounter the same kind of patterns.
Hmm.
eh?
Agree.
I'm going to give an example. They always profiteer from you. You're always being taken for. I'm giving a few nasty ones. You're always being taken for granted. When you need someone, they're never there for you. So these kind of patterns, as you go through life, yes, the actors might change. You might find yourself in a different career now, or in a different company right now, but you were not valued, or you had a domineering boss in your first company, and my God, 3 years later, you're in this different company,
The same
and
things are
again, you have a
happening, same
domineering
pattern.
boss or someone who doesn't recognize you. So these patterns, they are responsible for creating an environment around you that keeps repeating itself. And that's mostly subconscious. If you're not aware of that energy, you cannot translate it. And then you get a lot of people, and I think we all know those. I come in companies, I encounter a lot of them, that when they have not changed that kind of setting, that kind of energy in themselves, but that takes some deep diving, they become bitter, very bitter at the end of their career. Bitter about their lives, personal lives, but also potentially bitter about their career lives, and say, well, and then they literally say things like, when I retire, that will be, let's say, in the next week, I will retire, I'm 65 or 67, whenever you retire, I'm going to close this door behind me. And they say to their colleagues, and I will never, ever, ever set a step back into this company,
Oh God.
because they're so bitter. They're
Yeah.
so bitter, they're so disappointed because a certain pattern has kept on repeating. Yeah?
Hmm.
So when you focus strongly enough on things, um, it comes, but you have to do the work underneath it. If you don't clear the work underneath, it will, well, you will get some result, but the result
It will keep on coming back to
will be
you in
muddled.
by
Will be muddled.
various
Yeah,
sources,
yeah,
but the same thing keep on repeating.
yeah, yeah. So that's what's going on now. To give, I can give several examples. I will first give an easy one. And this is an example everyone knows it, because that is part of what I call your current personality. Because if you really want to change fundamentally, you also have to change your personality.
Yeah.
So imagine you're becoming very interested in having a cat. You never had a cat, you would like to see cats. Or I'll give another example that's perhaps more relatable, because not everyone likes cats. Imagine you want to buy a new car, and you want to buy a Mini, a Fiat Mini. It's not too many Minis driving here in Dubai, to be clear. But what will happen, or you can any other brand, the moment you start focusing that you want to buy a Mini, suddenly you drive around in your city, and everywhere you see Minis.
Yeah, because your focus
Yeah.
is, oh
You
yeah.
never seen them before, but now they
Hmm.
suddenly pop up. And when you look on Instagram, on social media, you
It
find
will
people,
just
yeah, they
coming over
drive the
there
same car. Interesting. They never showed up before, but now they're there.
because your focus is there and your willingness of getting it there.
Yes, your focus there, your willingness is getting there. Now, if you want to create something which is beyond, I would say, not in the safety zone of where you are right now, so it's a different level, then you need to change your personality. And changing your personality for most people, if you do it the hard way, that a lot of time happens because you're forced to, or because you're pushed into a corner. So you
Hmm.
have to change. Or sometimes a lot
Yeah.
of people make a lot of breakthroughs when when they are literally at the end of their rope. If this does not get resolved the next week, I'll be completely bankrupt.
Yeah.
I'll lose my house. So they come to a point. There's nothing more I can do. I
Like
just
no
have.
other way left.
There's nothing left. I have to surrender. And when you surrender, and I know this is very easily said, because surrendering is a frequency. I cannot just say I'm going to surrender. That's not how it works. It's because it's an energy signature. When you surrender, and I think everyone here will have similar examples, then normally the breakthroughs come. Okay? I've had situations in one of the projects I've invested in when at a certain moment we needed more investment because we needed to get the company going to the next level. There weren't immediately
Yeah.
investors coming in, and that at a certain moment I kept on focusing it. I fully surrendered, and then the investment came in. Sometimes literally 5 minutes to 12. Not
So
joking.
basically, if I put in some way, when you are want really things to be happen, you have to completely surrender to that. Make your personality according to what you really want to be, and then when the energy channels smash, and you will get it. There's the fastest and the easiest way to get
Yeah.
manifested.
And the difficult part is the surrendering part, and also the changing of your personality. Because imagine you want to become a multimillionaire, and you're not a multimillionaire right now. Well, the person who's going to be a multimillionaire will probably be a different person than the person sitting here. He will have different behavior, a different mindset, a
Yeah.
different way of looking at the world. And that change internally needs to happen first.
That's what we speak about the CEOs, the laymen.
Correct. And it's important to know change always happens first on the inside, never on the outside. The outside
Outside
is
is
just
just a
reflection.
reflection.
Indeed. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, wow, wow. Well, Chris, it was a very insightful conversation, and knowing you personally for like over 5 years, uh, we need more of this conversation because there's a lot of layers which needs to be open up, and definitely we need to have more encounters with you. Before we leaving the show, I want to know what's your vision like currently. What are you putting yourself for next 1 year?
Right now, I feel the world is in chaos. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of disruption going on. It is important more sanity returns to the world. And if I can help in creating more sanity, more groundedness, more purpose, more vision, more energy back into this world that is positive, that's what I want to focus upon. And that's what I want to do in the next coming years.
Very, very deep, very, very thoughtful, and very much, uh, I can say, connected to the nature, the way of living, as I can say. Well, once again, thank you so much, Chris, for giving your time and being in our podcast. and we're definitely gonna have more catch-ups in future coming up, especially when your next book is releasing.
Thank you for the invitation, Siddhartha, and thank you for the talk. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.